time. And the goal of this is just to give you an introduction to the microscopy core facility that's here on campus. So there won't be any science in this talk. It's really just to give you an overview of what the core facility is, what the services are, and hopefully you'll walk away learning something. So I have to ask, before we get started, how many of you did not know there's a microscopy core facility? Okay, so not many, that's a good thing. How many of you have used it? Okay, so for those of you who knew about it and have used it, there's going to be some redundant information, so I apologize for that. Hopefully you'll still walk away learning something that you didn't know the core facility does. So CSU has multiple research core facilities on campus. These are all funded either in part or in whole by the Vice President of Research. There's different types of core facilities. There's emerging cores, there's emerging cores, foundational, institutional, and specialized. The foundational cores is a set of core facilities that most people doing research are going to be very familiar with. So that's things like the central instrumentation facility, the proteomics facility, and the microscope imaging network falls into that category as well. So we're a foundational core facility, which means the services are considered to be essential to the research enterprise. So we get some money from the BPR's office for function, and we get some money from user fees to keep the lights on, to keep the microscopes running. The lights in this case were so the structure of the MIN is a little bit different from most core facilities, and that has to do partially with the way it was founded. It was founded by Jim and some other folks in 2008, 2007, something along those lines. Before it was actually an official core facility, which is part of why it's not called the microscopy core facility, but it's called the microscope imaging network. That's how it was founded, as a network of PIs with instrumentation that they wanted to make available to other researchers on campus. So we have an advisory board that consists of people who donated their instruments. Those instruments are owned by departments and colleges all over campus, and the PIs either got them through grants for their own research or shared instrumentation. However they got hold of them, they're in charge of them in one way or the other. And then we have other PIs around campus who are on the advisory board as well to make sure that the interests of other researchers are represented in any decisions that we make for the core facility. The mission is fairly straightforward. We have all the bullet points above, but the goal is to support your research. So if you need to take images, we'll try to help. If you need to process data, we'll try to help. If you want a new instrument, we'll try to help. So all those things I'll talk about here in a few minutes. And then we have instrument supervisors in addition to the advisory board. They're really the people who are the ones doing the work. They're the ones in the trenches who are going to train you to use a microscope, take data on a fee-for-service kind of basis, make sure that things are aligned on a day-to-day kind of schedule. So these are the folks that, if you got in touch with me and said, hey, I want to try this new kind of microscopy, if you were interested, for example, in atomic force microscopy, the first thing I would do after we determined it was appropriate is put you in touch with Brennan Pierce, and she's the one who would actually do the training and help you learn how to use that instrument. It's a very busy slide. There will be a test afterward. Because this is recorded and because you can go online and look at this later, all this information is on the website, but you'll be able to find all this in PowerPoint that's recorded as well. I put this up here just to kind of show you, in this context of the talk, that there's a lot of instrumentation and that it's scattered all over campus. So this is kind of by design, right? We have centralized administration, but we have distributed instrumentation. It's all over, including out on the Foothills campus and the Rick building, on the north side of campus and the Scott Lang Engineering building. And what's nice about this is that if you're in this building and you need to go use a confocal microscope, you can walk down the hall. You don't have to go across campus. So again, you can find all this information on the website. In addition to all these sort of standard confocal and total reflection microscopes, we have some other hardware, including a plasma clear, microelectron type 4, and a fluorescence dissection microscope that is on the way soon. We just got a grant to buy a fluorescence dissection microscope. So that's a fair amount of instrumentation, but it's never enough. There's always some application where somebody will come along and say, I'd really love to do light sheet microscopy, for example. We don't have a light sheet microscope that's available in the core facility at the moment. So one of the things that we do in the core is try to facilitate instrumentation grants. And these are through shared instrumentation grants like through the NSF or the NIH. There's also grants internal to CSU, which is how we're getting the fluorescence dissection microscope. And typically this is to adopt either a new imaging technology, for example, lattice light sheet microscopy. The paper came out in, I think it was the fall of 2014, and within about 6 months we were writing an NSF proposal to try to get our hands on one. It ultimately didn't go through, but that was adopting a new technique that had been contacted by several people saying it would be interesting for their research. The other place that it's useful, though, is to provide access to state-of-the-art equipment. So we have multiple confocals on campus, but maybe it's not the latest and greatest. Maybe it's not the ARIScan. Maybe it doesn't have a certain module, or it's not Clarity capable, or whatever. And so sometimes we can do these grants related to trying to upgrade existing equipment and get the latest and greatest kind of technology for specific applications. Generally, these things, we acquire them for multi-use. That's kind of how the grants are structured. They want to see a group of PIs with different instruments that satisfy a broad range of instrumentation, or sorry, a broad range of research interests with that instrumentation. So one example that was funded recently was the Keenan's all-in-one fluorescence microscope. So here's some data from that. It has all these neat features in it. It's a great microscope that does all kinds of cool things. And it was identified as a tool that might be useful for us. So we brought in Keenan's, we did a demo. We had multiple researchers come in and do test data. From that, we identified a group of 10, 12 PIs, something along those lines, and ultimately got that funded, and now it's sitting one floor down in this building, and it's free for use. The same with the fluorescence dissection microscope, and one of the electron microscopes was acquired through one of these grants as well. So if you have an idea, or if there's something that you're interested in that we don't have, this is a way that we can try to get our hands on this. One thing I forgot to add to this slide, we have a ticketing system now for the core facility. And one of the categories in that ticketing system is suggestions for new instrumentation. So hopefully that will elicit some more suggestions from researchers across campus. Another thing we do that you may not be aware of if you've just kind of used microscopes in the core facility is we can do some custom instrumentation now. So sometimes what you need, you can't write an instrumentation grant because it doesn't exist. You need to build something from scratch. So here's a case from Jim's lab, which we've talked about this already, or this is in the practicums today. But this is an incubation chamber that we designed and built to keep brain slices alive in a flat-sided ink tube. You can't go to Olympus and say, hey, I need a stage-top incubator for a flat-sided ink tube. It doesn't exist. But we have the expertise within the MIN where we can go and design this, have it machined on campus, build something special. We built this little homebrew incubator, and it works. So this is the kind of thing that we can help out with as well. If you have some application where you just don't quite have the right tools and you can't find them in a catalog, we may be able to help build something. Alternatively, sometimes we build things that are widely available. So stage-top incubator is not that hard to buy. Or hard to find, but sometimes we don't have the funding in the core facility to do so. So you don't want to spend $10,000, $12,000, $15,000 for a stage-top incubator if you can build one for $1,000. So again, these are areas where we try to enable research not only by designing something that doesn't exist, but maybe making something that does exist and is very expensive more affordable. One of the big pushes, so this is a movie. This is sort of, not very scientifically interesting talk, so I have a movie here that shows fluorescence recovery after photo bleaching. So that's a little bit more interesting than just watching the bullet points go by. One of the things the core facility does is fund pilot project grants. And the idea here is that if you're a researcher that doesn't have funding, you've lost your funding, maybe you're a graduate student and your PI lost funding and you're so close to finishing your thesis, you just need that one more data set. You can go to the MIN, the website is right here, and you can submit an application for a pilot project grant. The goal of these is really to say, take an unfunded researcher, give them access to the microscopy core facility to take data, and use that data in a grant application to get funded. We also want to be able to help students graduate, which is another application we tend to be interested in funding. Right now, we do up to about $2,000 worth of training and costs. So this isn't, we're not going to write you a check, but if you say, I want to use an electron microscope, we'll just pay for the time that you use it up to $2,000. Of course, you have to submit this, and it goes through the advisory board and through myself, and we review it and see if it's an appropriate application. And if it is, then we award the funding. I will say that right now, we've typically funded about 1 to 2 of these a year. If you fall in the category of needing pilot project, please submit. We have a little bit more funding than we typically do, and we have a little more flexibility to fund some of these right now. So up here is an example, and this is sort of boring to look at bullet points. So this came out of Jeff Hansen's lab here from the biochemistry department. And Jeff had an idea, but he didn't have funding to pursue this idea. So he applied, looking at aggregates of chromatin, and he applied to use the spinning disc confocal downstairs to do the fluorescence recovery after photobleaching flat experiment. He got the funding, he went and took the data, and that's the movie that I'm showing you here, which is so for example, you can see here that thing photobleaches and then it starts to recover. And the question, I'm not a biochemist, so I can't speak to this in any great detail, but the question had to do with how the chromatin inside these chromosome fibers, was it dynamic, was it static? And doing this study, Jeff was able to show that if you just look at this thing in a wild-type mouse versus replace it with formaldehyde, you get drastically different things. And the ultimate result of all of this was that he was able to put together a hypothesis that he submitted to the NSF and was able to get a successful grant out of this. So this is sort of the archetype for what we want this program to be. This, for those who are interested, this is the model. I can't do it justice, so I'm just going to fly past it. One of the things we frequently hear in the core facility, I hear it from people who use the core facility a lot. I know other people who are affiliated with the core have heard this as well, is that there's a lot of people who take images in the core facility, but then it's not really obvious what to do with them after the fact. You put an image in a paper, you put it on a poster, and you're done. There's really quantitative information in here, right? And the goal should be to extract as much information as possible. So one of the things that we're trying to help do now is offer a little bit of image processing and data analysis services. So I have two examples for that, just to show you that we can try to help a little bit. So one example comes from the mechanical engineering department, the biomedical engineering department. And the goal of this project, these are little algae cells, and this is a differential interference contrast image that was taken downstairs on the spinning disc confocal microscope. And the goal of this project was really to use an ultrasonic sorter to sort algae cells for biofuels. But in order to do that, the student had to know how big is an algae cell. On average, I have this vats of algae. How big is one of these algae cells? The previous student had tried to characterize this, and after finishing his PhD, he had 25 cells measured. So this other student approached me and said, is there anything else we can do? So we ended up taking data, and there's a lot of different ImageJ and Fiji and different analysis packages that you can use, but this student was completely naive to any of that. So I wrote a little Python script for her where now you feed in an image, and all she has to do is say, Python, find cell size, and it goes through a batch of files that she's taken from the microscopy core facility, fits the size to all of these things, and then you can go through and plot history. So now, she said that in the span of a week, we increased the throughput of her experiment by about a factor of 100. So very simple example, something that she could go through the Fiji or ImageJ literature for several days and figure this out, or we can solve this problem in just about a couple of hours of Python code. Another simple example is just image denoising. Again, there's lots of image denoising things that are built into most software packages for image processing. But you can also go through and sort of build your own structures depending on what you know about your experiment. So this is an example from my research. This is a second harmonic generation image of the paraventricular, well, near the paraventricular nucleus. These are the appendable cells near the ventricle. And if you just take a single raw image, we were limited by signal to noise. It was pretty terrible. But it turns out you can apply some linear algebra techniques, in this case, singular value decomposition. You take your image and you decompose it into this structure. And this vector here, S, is actually a diagonal matrix, but along the diagonal, that's this curve that I'm plotting for you here. And all this means is that the lower number modes in this decomposition contain most of the information of your image, and anything above roughly 10 modes contains just noise. So you can take this, write a little MATLAB script, and basically all you do then is say, MATLAB SPD my image, something like that, and you tell it which mode do I want to keep. And if I keep all the modes, I have a noisy image. If I throw away all the higher order modes, I have something that's a little different. So again, this is not, we're not inventing the wheel, we're not doing new science here. This is just something that we, in the core facility, can help you out with if you're having troubles doing any sort of image processing and statistical analysis. So another big push, and it's not just the MIN, all the core facilities sort of have a mandate from the VPR's office that we should be doing more educational, more outreach sort of efforts as well. So the MIN has kind of two prongs to this approach. The first approach is to say, we're going to start a microscopy lecture series starting in the fall. So the idea is to have this be a survey-driven thing. So all of you, by being affiliated with this course, will be on the email list. I will spam you with a survey asking you what kind of microscopy you'd like to learn about. And once per month, we'll put on a lecture. And the idea will be, roughly a 45-minute lecture with another 45 minutes or so for questions and follow-up and detailed discussions. But we'll cover all kinds of different topics. So we'll have some that are set, an overview talk like this. Something, an optics primer, a detection of light primer, something that gets the basics down. But then beyond that, it's really going to be driven by the students, the potential students who come and sit in this course. What do you want to learn about? Is the electron microscopy? Is the super resolution? What have you. So again, all of these things were taken in the core facility, and these are all things that we have the expertise in-house to not only sort of teach you the basics of, but train you to do in the lab. The second fork of our education, and it's really the sort of main one at the moment, is that we founded, and it's really Jim's brainchild, a professional science master's degree in microscopy. So this is the first professional science master's degree in microscopy in the nation. As far as we can tell, it's the first microscopy graduate degree in the nation. There's lots of short courses, but they're usually designed for a specific application. This curriculum has been approved finally. It's officially starting fall 2019, this year. And the idea is to fill the need for people who are trained in microscopy. The archetypal student would come out of this course and step into some sort of core facility role where they have expertise in life sciences, they have expertise in engineering, they have expertise in optics, data processing, storage, and some business training communication skills as well. So you can read about it online. You can go to the website and read all the core details, look at sample curricula, apply if you're so interested. But these are the main sort of bullet points that we want to hit for the students in this course so that they come out and have some sort of training in all of the aspects of doing microscopy. Along with that, we've gotten our hands now on some new space in a building just across the street there, in the Anatomy and Zoology building, for training and development. And this is really kind of a twofold approach. So on one hand, we want to be able to train students in the program. We'll be doing internships both within the core facility and external. One of the internships is to build microscopes and try to address new and interesting needs on campus. We also want to use this to try to develop new ideas on campus. So, we talked about the instrumentation grants and how when there's new technology that comes out, we try to get our hands on it. Sometimes, and the last light sheet is another good example, when it first came out, it was licensed through a company called 3i down in Denver, and they had the exact replica of what was developed in Genelia Farm. So it's not very turnkey. Zeiss had been developing something that should be turnkey, more easy to use. To my knowledge, it still hasn't come out. So there's a big lag time between when new technology comes out and when it can be commercially available. We want to be able, with this development lab, to sort of close that gap and say, look, you read this paper, see this new technique, and you'd like to adopt it. We don't have to wait for 3i. We don't have to wait for Olympus. Let's just go build it across the street. Alternatively, maybe we use this, if you've got an idea on how to do a new type of microscopy. Cool, let's build it. So we've got space, we've gotten our hands on some donated equipment, and some optical benches and so forth. This is another area where we try to push forward and help you with your research by not being limited to the tools that we have commercially available. On that front, so here's an example. So two more movies. These are stacks going through intestinal tissue pieces, sheep intestine. So this is a custom-built laser scanning 2-photon microscope. And one of the things you get free from laser scanning 2-photon is second harmonic generation, which is an endogenous contrast mechanism that responds to protein structures, usually collagens. So in this case, we have a researcher who is interested in doing a project looking at how collagen breaks down in the gut after biopsies. Various other surgeries go on. And they had a partnership with a medical company, but getting our hands on a laser scanning system like this it's about $600,000 for the base level system. It can be double that very easily. Conversely, this guy came to me and said, what would it take to build one from scratch? So we talked about it, I put together a quote, and the company was so much lower than what it would be to commercially viable. The company just wrote a check and donated to the university the money to build this system. So this system, we're going through the sole source process right now to build this system on campus so that we can explore this and start seeding preliminary data for grants. So this is just an example of, again, if we don't have the instrumentation in the core facility, it doesn't necessarily mean we're stuck. I'm going to skip through this real quick because we can finish even a little bit early. But here's just more examples of how we can use this microscope to do fun things. So the takeaway, if you get nothing else from this, if you've already known about the core facility, you know that the whole goal is here. It's to help you advance your research, and whether that means we're helping by providing access to a confocal microscope, or we're trying to help you analyze your data, or we're trying to build a new instrument, great, we'll do it. Whatever it takes to help you do that. We do have a lot of commercial instrumentation available and a lot of image processing software available as well. We have Chimeras and Velocity. I can't even remember that's so many. Pilot project program, again, please contact us. If you're running short on funding, we happen to be in a good position right now to fund more than we typically do. And again, custom hardware, custom designs, image processing consulting is all there. So if you've used the core in the past, maybe you weren't aware that we're trying to help you do this stuff these days. That's about all I've got. So happy to take questions. Otherwise, we're done early.
I wanted you to point out about the fact that the professional science master's is an integrated degree program. Because you do have undergraduates here too.
Yeah, so the way that the graduate school had us word things, it's actually open to integrated degree program, but it is open to sequential degree program as well, technically. So it is an integrated degree program, and if you're junior year and you're interested in this, or senior year, there's a pathway through the course material to get through with about a year and a half after graduation.
Any other questions? Thank you, Jeff.